Now, one of the attributes of a good leader is the show of empathy towards his followers. In a display of this as part of efforts to alleviate hunger, Borno State Governor Professor Babagana Zulum has distributed federal government's relief package to residents of the state. Well, the packages distributed include food items to 10,000 families in Mafa Local Government Area of the state and 150 million naira to 15,000 female heads of households. Governor Zulum, who supervised the distribution, applauded the federal government for initiating the intervention. Well, let's quickly begin with you on this, Babajide. First off, there have been some arguments that empowering farmers and improving value chains is a better solution to the food crisis than offering palliatives. What are your thoughts on this?
Nobody will say this is the solution. It's just a way of helping our people. And it is not only in Nigeria that these things happen. The Food and Agriculture Organization sent relief materials from Ukraine to Nigeria, the same way it sent it to some countries of the world. Some people, led by a very prominent politician who contested the presidential election the other day, said, they are sending relief materials to Nigerians, just giving the impression that we have become beggars. But countries where the economy is much better, where there is greater prosperity, they also partake from such things because Nigerians, with limited exposure, they just come to all kinds of funny conclusions. No one is saying that this is the solution to food crisis.
Right.
But even the World Bank always preaches that you should do conditional cash transfer for the poorest of the poor in your communities. So it's not something that Nigerians invented. It is something that is done all over the world. I remember during COVID, Trump was sharing food items. It's just to help people in critical periods. No one is saying this is the solution. No, but of course people have to complain. People will complain about virtually everything. That is the nature of our people. It's a lot worse now. With the advent of social media, people look for something to complain about. They will never feel at ease if there is nothing to complain about. So the federal government released food items to the states. This governor has successfully distributed all of what he was given. Before now, he had distributed food items in Gwoza and Ganze. This town, Bama, that he went to, Mafa, is his adopted hometown because he grew up there. But it's not originally from Mafa. Many people in Borno State will say that is the hometown of the governor. But his hometown is actually Zulum. Zulum is in a different local government,
right,
close to the border with Chad. So what he has only done is to distribute what the federal government came up with for the states.
Donated.
And in distributing food to the poorest of the poor, the federal government has not done anything wrong. We know that on a sustainable basis, we must come up with programs that will help us address food insecurity. But before, those are long-term
solutions.
Yes.
Right.
Before we get there are people who are very poor. Look at Borno, for example, where insecurity means that people can access their farms the way they want to. Are you not going to assist people? There will always be people in IDP camps, for example, who can't fend for themselves. And where the governor goes to share things to those people, there's no reason to complain or say, oh, it is not the solution. Nobody said distributing palliative is the silver bullet that will address the matter of hunger in our country. But the poorest of the poor,
right,
they have to be attended to. And all fingers are not equal. Even the Bible says that we can't all be rich. So the Bible preaches that those who are rich, they should assist the poor. So that is what is happening. No one is saying that, oh, this is... They just must criticize whatever government is doing. If it doesn't come up with palliatives to help people, they will say the government is unfeeling. They will say the government does not have empathy. People are wired to simply complain about everything. It's a disease now in our country that you must find something to complain about. So before this problem began, Zulum has been distributing
food items.
Yes, he didn't have to wait. Before many governors even thought that it was necessary to come up with transportation subsidy, this governor did it. This governor brought electric cars, and people of Borno State can ride in electric cars by paying just 50 naira. So he didn't even need the federal government to teach him to do this. He's been doing it since the day he became governor, because he also came from a very poor background. He had to ride, do kabu to pay his way through university. So such people will not forget the poor in the society easily, because they know that they too are part of them. So this is the thing. If someone does what is right, let's simply give him credit for what he has done and not say, oh, that is not the solution. What is your own solution?
Okay, let's quickly move beyond this, because, you know, in as much as this measure is more of a short-term solution, but beyond this initiative, there could be this insinuation, rather this proposition that local governments need to be empowered now to address food crisis. How do you think local governments can do this, especially in communities that are grossly affected by the food security problem?
Well, thank God for the Supreme Court judgment that has finally restored financial autonomy to local governments.
Right.
Ordinarily, local governments are the closest to the people. They are closer to the wards. The federal government and state government, they are far off to the people, but local governments. So I think that local governments now that they have started receiving their funds, I want to assume that by this distribution, about 3 weeks ago, right, July, they have started receiving funds. Let them sit down. Each of the local governments in the country should look at producing food that is of comparative advantage to them and trying to solve the problem of their local populace.
Right.
And that is the only way you can bring support to the people. In a normal situation, federal government has no business with farming. The only area where the federal government should come in the area of subsidizing the cost of importing agricultural equipment for the states and for the local governments. Yeah. But because the governors are in charge of land, the federal government, the president doesn't sign any CFO, but the governors are in charge. And even in another area, the local governments are closer to the lands. They know where the land is. They know the geographical area, the arable land they can plant. So let them advise themselves to plow the fund they are getting now into areas that are very important, that will touch the people at the grassroots, that will touch each of the states, like my state now, I know they have about maybe 2,000 wards. Right. Each of the chairmen of local government, right, they know how many wards they have. So when you know how many wards you have, you should be able to sit down and plan the kind of food those people need. What do we expect from local government? Food, health, primary education. Those are the important things. So local government should begin to focus, now that they have funds released to them, let them focus on those key areas that will make life meaningful for the residents of the local government area. Let there be dispensaries that are well-run. Let there be primary schools that are well-run. People don't have to travel 10 kilometers to go to any general hospital. So let
them feel the impact of governance.
People feel the impact of governance.
Right.
The ball is now in their court. No local government has any excuse now not to do that one which they are supposed to do as per the position of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So because they have roles to play, and now they have funds, no excuse.
Absolutely. BKO, your final thoughts on this conversation before we move to our next topic?
Yes, I think our governors need to show greater empathy. We are used to blaming the federal government for everything. We are heaping all the blame on the president and not looking in the direction of the state governors. The federal government has not got land of its own. The state governments have lands. How many of them are actually embarking on tremendous cultivation of land so that we can stimulate agri production?
Absolutely.
They are far more interested in awarding contracts where there is a greater chance of making money than actually getting involved in agri production, apart from a few governors. I'm sorry to say our governors are just not interested. And if we boost agri production, it will also help us to boost our economy. Agri still remains the highest contributor to the GDP of our country till today, and is the highest employer of labor. You know? So we need to do a lot. Now, by now, we should be preparing seriously for dry season farming. Dry season farming of wheat, for example. Our country used to produce a lot of wheat. Today, what are we doing? We are extremely reliant on importation of wheat on Ukraine and other places. They will use wheat for bread. They will use wheat for noodles. They will use for confectionery. So it has become, bread has become extremely expensive now because the bulk of the stuff that they use in baking it are imported. Baking powder, sugar, all of these things, yeast. So we need to stimulate agri production.
Absolutely.
Yes, the federal government can lead the way, but we need to see what governors are doing. Look at the example of the governor of Niger, for example. I know that he can do much better, but he has started on a good note, and he wants to be identified with agriculture. In fact, he has added farmer to his name. You should call me Farmer Bago, you know. So, in the Awolowo years that we always talk about here, we relied on money that we made from cash crops. All of those Lagos bridges that you see, those Lagos bridges, you go to the island, all of those bridges, they were built not with petrodollar, but from money that we made from agri. That was when Nigeria was in the top 10 in most of the big cash crops. Today, we brushed aside agriculture because we saw crude oil. Everybody is now focusing on the money from crude oil. And look how we are suffering even as a country. We can't produce enough crude oil. So for even our refineries, if Dangote were to start today, I'm telling you that they won't be able to find enough crude oil for a 650,000 barrels per day refinery. This is the truth. I'm not a doomsday prophet. This is the truth. And we will all see. We are not producing enough. Well, not to talk of refining. If we can't even produce enough crude oil,
the OPEC quota says
we are not meeting our quota.
We are not even meeting our quota.
We are not meeting our quota.
So
and some time ago, we were doing about 2.3 million a day. The other day, they told us it's 1.6.
It's now 1.6.
Before now, it was not even up to that.
It's 900,000.
Less than. In other words, stimulation of agricultural production is key to avert food crisis, among other things, in our country.